I am focusing on students who are looking for a stepping stone to start their Quranic learning journey. So I am very honored to be invited by the NUSMS to share a little bit of what I have, so that I am not here to preach. Neither am I here to force all of you to jom masuk kelas ni, jom masuk tajwid. Saya ajar tajwid tau, saya ajar Quran tau. Siapa tak belajar dosa. I'm not here to do that. But instead, I am here to share with you some things that I know so that it might give you or maybe spark some ideas on how you can move forward, or maybe to give you a stepping stone, or where can you go after this, or how can you start, right? So inshallah, um, in the next couple of minutes or hours, inshallah, together with me and together with the brothers and sisters of NUSMS, inshallah, we will go through with you. We will be sharing. We will be having a sharing session. Feel free to switch on your camera. I love to see my students. It is very one-sided lah kalau kita berbual seorang-seorang, right? So I am very much comfortable if you all can switch on your camera. This is a two-way street. Feel free to raise your hands, right? MCs, host, if you are able to see anyone who raised their hands, please let me know and we can unmute them to listen to their questions. Alternatively, you can also visit the link given to you to write down or present your question as well. If you are very much comfortable to write your questions in the chat box, feel free to do so as well. All right. Can I just check with you, host, that I have this this meeting is being recorded. So do I click continue? Continue
Yes.
Bukan
Let
leave
us
meeting
continue.
habis semua nanti. Okay. All right.
Alright.
So Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Let us go through a little bit of what is going to happen next an hour and a half, inshallah, which is something that, like I've mentioned before, a stepping stone. That is why the name is called Seeding Barakah. Because in order for you to bloom, in order for you to grow, you first need to plant a seed. So this is where I will help you plant a seed. I give you nak apa, pokok apa? Pokok limau ada, pokok kari ada. So I'm going to give you the seed here. All right. How are you going to nurture it? How are you going to nourish it? This is all up to you. All right. So the next couple of an hour and a half, inshallah, I'll be covering about the general barakah. So basically, general barakah, I would say that this word barakah is a very, very um, beautiful and magical word. Let me break it down for you. Basically, barakah, if you were to look at the definition of barakah, is basically straight up forward. If you go into the dictionary, barakah means blessing, right? But how do you break down the word barakah? How do you see barakah? How do you feel barakah? How do you attain barakah in the first place, right? And the commonly used in a sentence about barakah, kau makan gitu nanti tak berkat tau, right? So we tend to use barakah in a way that is part of our lives, which without it will be lost, right? Without it, our life will be meaningless. But at the same time, I would also like all of us to take a step back and look at the broader picture that barakah itself is something which is equivalent to happiness. Barakah itself, it is equivalent to something when you attain mindfulness. Barakah itself, when you learn to discover about your self-love, self-care, when okay, some of you may say, Ustazah, self-love, self-care ni macam cliche lah, Ustazah. But let me touch on that first, all right? Self-love, self-care, it is not something that is new. This is something that I would like to share with all of you here. Self-care and self-love is not something that is new. In fact, self-love and self-care is something that has been introduced to us even in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It's just that maybe the terminology or the term self-love, self-care has been reintroduced in the recent years. All right. So if you look back about Barakah, right, it has a sense of um, individualism at the same time to spread it around our external as well. All right. The second part, inshallah, be covering about is the importance of applying tajweed. So why and how did it come about? Why is it important? And how did it develop into what we have today? And inshallah, for the rest of our lives until the end of the time. And then finally, inshallah, if we have the time, we will go through a little bit of um, the common mistakes that been made in Surah Al-Fatiha. Why? Because this is something that which we recite every day. How many times, everybody? Surah Al-Fatiha. Don't say five, ah. How 2 plus 4 plus 4 plus 3 plus 4, 17, people. All right. So 17 times daily. So Surah Al-Fatiha is something which is very, very important and it's part of our lives. In fact, we do not only recite Surah Al-Fatiha in our salah, but we recite Surah Al-Fatiha when we start a meeting, when we start our class, right? When we want to do our exams, or even if we want to, the moment we step out of the house, that is when we recite Surah Al-Fatiha. If we were to talk about Surah Al-Fatiha, I would need probably about 3 to 4 sessions just to talk about Surah Al-Fatiha, because Surah Al-Fatiha is something which is very much, again, something which I mentioned before about Dua Rabbi Shrahni, because Surah Al-Fatiha is also a very, very underrated topic that we rarely discuss about. We talk about the tafsir of it. We talk about the tajweed of it, but we did not talk about the benefits of reciting Surah Al-Fatiha. Right? If you have the chance to learn about Surah Al-Fatiha, the tafsir of it, the story of it, the science of how it was sent down, at what occasion was it sent down, and the tajweed and the benefits of it, please do so. All right. I believe all of you have been given an article, or maybe I would say, correct, an article or a passage about Tajweed, the introduction to Tajweed. If you have not received, you can actually ask from the host, inshallah. All right. So I would like to begin my session tonight by going through the definitions, right? If you want to be passionate about something, right? If you would like to fall in love with something, you would want to know the basic stuff, right? What's its name? Um, where does it stay, right? You want to get to know someone, right? You ask, nama siapa, tinggal mana, kerja apa, orang mak-mak suka cakap orang mana, right? So, and the question orang mana ni selalu kita susah nak jawab. Orang mana? Nak cakap orang kerja mana ke, orang apa ke, tinggal mana ke, right? It's a very, very complex question when someone asks orang mana. Alright, so let me introduce to you tajweed. The word tajweed itself. The word tajweed itself, by definition, it means jayyid, right? If you learn Arabic, right? If you have been to the Middle East countries, jayyid is being used to describe something good. Jayyid it means, okay, simple lah ni layman term. Very good. Okay. Back then when I was in madrasah, people tend to use this. Jayyid, baik, macam tu. Right? So, jayyid means very good. All right. So, it is also in language that it means proficiency, which is to do something very well. Right? So, tajweed comes from the root word jayyid. So, basically, first and foremost, I would also like all of you to ask this question. When you are interested in something, the first thing you ask yourself is, who is this for? Who is this thing right for? Okay. So tajweed, who is this for? Okay. Generally, it is for everyone. However, specifically, this is for someone who, firstly, wajib lah orang Islam. Okay. You know how to recite the Quran? You must learn tajweed as well. Okay. For those of you who have learned tajweed before, right? I would like all of you to take a moment to unlearn and relearn again. Maybe some of you have learned tajweed before. Ustazah, I have learned tajweed before. I know tajweed is about ikhfa, idgham, idhar, iklab, and then got the ma'arid li sukun. Every time my guru ngaji ask me what question, the extraction hukum, I always say ma'arid sukun. Padahal dia salah. Because everything at the end of the ayat, I always say ma'arid sukun. But we all have to learn that not everything at the end of the ayah is actually ma'arid sukun. Right? Um, at the same time, some of the students, when they learn tajweed, they don't find the passion, they don't find the interest in learning tajweed, which is why I'm here tonight. Which is why I'm here tonight to actually to break it down further and show you how interesting this tajweed is. You know, as when you learn algebra, right? Algebra can get very, very dry and very apa orang kata very complex, right? And you have to remember certain things. But when you learn to do, when you started to do your tanya series, lama tak dengar tanya series Topical ke? Okay, okay. Alright, so um, but when you learn to do it, when you learn to find the right system, when you learn to find the right teacher, when you learn to find a proper setting, a proper environment of learning the tajweed, you will realize that tajweed is actually embedded in every part of what you do relating to the Quran. Tajweed is embedded everywhere. It's just that we have specifically view it as something that is very precise, which is like ikhfa, idgham, that kind of thing. Later on, inshallah, I'll be what do you call it? I will broaden the topic for you. How does tajweed applies in your daily life, right? And this is where, inshallah, by the end of the session, we will redefine again what is tajweed for you. Okay, you see, you all buy my content or not? Okay, all right. So inshallah, so first and foremost, we should know that tajweed is about giving every huruf its right in pronouncing. That is the very minimal and basic meaning of tajweed, to give its right. Right? It's a simple thing. I give you an analogy. As in a marriage, you have a man and a wife. The man has his role, the woman has his role. Yeah? Every person has his rights. Not given its rights, it will be unfair. Same goes to the huruf in the Quran. You do not give its rights, then you will not feel it. You will not feel it when you recite it. You will not, you won't find the goodness, the taste of the sweetness of the recitation. Why? Because of not applying the tajweed correctly. And the Quran was revealed with tajweed. So as all of us have already learned about the revelation of the first ayat to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what was the first ayat? Iqra. That's right, Surah Al-Alaq. Iqra, a'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Iqra bismi rabbikal ladhi khalaq. خلق الإنسان من علق. اقرأ وربك الأكرم الذي علم بالقلم. علم الإنسان ما لم يعلم. Rasulullah SAW received the first revelation. Who was his teacher back then? When you know how to learn, there must be someone teaching you, right? Who was his teacher then?
Jibril
Malaikat Jibril alaihi salam. That's right. Malaikat Jibril alaihi salam. So Malaikat Jibril alaihi salam revealed to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in ways it was permissible to write, which means permissible means how it was supposed to be recited. So in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there was no theory of tajweed, right? So when the Malaikat Jibril alayhi salam come to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam with that specific ayat, he memorized it. We need to know, we need to establish the fact that we need to acknowledge the fact that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was an illiterate. He was not neither able to recite nor was he able to write, right? So at that point of time, how does this theory, like how we learn our driving, BTT, FTT, right? How did it come about, this theory, right? So at that point of time, there was no theory of tajweed. So when did it start? It started when Islam spreads. The Arabs started to mix with non-Arabs. Yeah, whether via trading. So basically about Arabs, right? Um, while they are doing tradings, when they travel, right, they are also doing their da'wah. That's the cool thing about Arabs back then. They were given the task to spread da'wah, to spread the oneness of Allah. All right. So when the when from Malaikat Jibril alaihi salam to Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam shared, right, spread the kalimah Allah every time he received the revelation. And when the companions receive it, they receive it based on how it was recited to Rasulullah. And when the companions spread to the non-Arabs, right, as Islam grew, that was when slowly, bit by bit, right, in the time of Sayyidina Abu Bakr has already started the implications of certain things, as one by one companions martyred during the war. So that was when slowly they started written in different materials such as woods, the skin of animals, and later on, eventually, this part right here, I am not going to cover it in detail. This will be this will be something which is can be covered in detail when you learn the science of the Quran. If I may share, she is here right now in the room, Ustazah Nuraiza. Ustazah Nuraiza specializes in ulum Quran. Ulum Quran is science of the Quran. Ini promote sikit lah, because I have heard her talking about science of the Quran, and mashallah, it was so beautiful that I highly encourage NUS MS to propose. Sorry, Zaiza, control name sikit Alright. Okay, moving forward, in the time of Umayyah, okay, in the time of the Emperor Umayyah, it was then they started to have concerns as how do we spread, or how do we teach people how to recite the Quran? How do we preserve the recitation of the Quran in a way that we can recite to someone and one can memorize it, but how can we preserve for the next generations after generations to come until today? Which means whatever tajweed theory that we have today, we owe it all to the people of the tabi'in, basically the ulama, the tabi'in. Now, if you look through the article which was given to all of you, right? First, we need to understand the purpose of tajweed. First and foremost, we need to understand that the purpose of tajweed is to ensure that recitation must be taken seriously, even to the point where when it is recited during the salah, right? During my class, I covered Suratul Fatiha to the extent where my students would say this, Ustazah, I solat tak khusyuk, Ustazah, I keep repeating my surah Al-Fatiha. But of course, I would say this, in your salah, this is not the time for you to practice your Surah Al-Fatiha. You should be practicing your Surah Al-Fatiha outside your salah, not during your salah. Yeah, so that is why it is very important for you to recite the Surah Al-Fatiha outside your salah. Practice it, right? And then two things that one should understand or one should observe or one should actually pay attention to. One is the proficiency, and the one is to observe. Now, it is compulsory to recite as how it was revealed to Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who received from Malaikat Jibril alaihi salam in a classical Arabic dialect. Okay, when we mention classical Arabic dialect, we must understand this. Classical Arabic dialect almost vanished today. Almost vanished today. Because not everybody, or not every Arabic recites or speaks classical Arabic. What we have today, that is the official Arabic, yes. But classical Arabic, kalau last time, I had the opportunity to watch this Arabic drama or series, which they actually speak like reciting the Quran. Kalau you all dengar, these people speak to each other as though they are reciting the Quran. For a moment, you will think that, surah apa ni? But actually, they are actually speaking to each other. Just imagine when I ask you, how are you today? Says Aisha. You say, Alhamdulillah. Or even if someone asks you, um, Brother Rahmad, I'll see you next week. You say,
Inshallah.
Inshallah. But no, this person say, Inshallah. Nah, you all tomorrow, I cakap, see you all next week. You all say, Inshallah.
You can
Habis.
try for one day.
Okay, can. You say one, Okay.
Inshallah.
Inshallah. Right? Why? Because they apply the rulings of the Quran. So when inshallah nun sakina meets with shin, it is ikhfa, right? It is ikhfa, and they apply that application. Why? And it is not something that is odd to them, because this is the classical Arabic. This was how the Quran was sent down. And you can imagine, of course, today if we hear it, you will find it like macam, I'm not gonna talk like that, right? But when you really listen to it, it is very, very beautiful. And subhanallah, even when you pronounce someone's name, Brother Rahmat, you don't say Rahmat. People got call you Rahmat, not Brother Rahmat.
It's very common.
Very common, Rahmat. Right? You know why? Because my father Rahmat, so I know. Right? But when you pronounce someone's name with a proper pronunciation, proper makhraj, which I will be covering later on, inshallah, it is actually beautiful. You are actually honoring someone's name. You are actually honoring someone, right? Sis Aisyah Munirah. Munirah tau, bukan Munira. And it's not even Aisyah, it's Aisyah. Aisyah. Or someone, ada orang panggil you Aisyah. I said, when ada, sini You marah dia. Cakap, no Aisyah, Aisyah. Okay? Sarah. Not Sarah, it's Sarah. Right? So when you pronounce someone's name, you are actually honoring that person. So of course lah, kita pun jangan expect too much lah from people yang tak faham tajwid ni kan. Right? Okay? So I am just putting it out there that it is beautiful when you look through the beauty of the tajwid. Now, okay. So the foundation of tajweed. So where do we start here? So foundation of tajweed means knowing the makhraj, and not just the makhraj, but also not just the sifa. Okay. If you were to, okay, I believe that some of you have come across or have learned qiraati, right? Buku Iqra, buku 1 to 6, right? You learn aba, right? Let me tell you, that is tajweed, right? Okay, that is actually tajweed. If you can't master that, then that is something that you have to look upon. I mean, sorry, what do you call it? Ponder upon. Why? Because this is something which is very, very underrated, and people tend to say this. Ustazah, I want to learn tajweed, something more up sikit, Ustazah. But this is tajweed. This makhraj right here, knowing each and every huruf. Okay, I ask you all. In Arabic, Quran, need letters, how many letters? Don't say 26. 26 is English. 28, right? 28 huruf, right? 28 huruf. Have you mastered the makhraj of all 28 huruf? If you have mastered, then mashallah, that is one part of the tajweed that is already been covered, right? When I when someone asks me, Ustazah, I want to learn how to recite the Quran, my answer will always be this: start from foundation. It does not make you like a kid when you learn from basic. No, there's nothing to be shy about when learning the foundation of something. In fact, when you learn the foundation of something, it shows how how humble you are. Because why? Because you know that there is something that in the foundation itself that you have not learned yet, right? Yes, you may have learned the alif ba ta, right? But when you learn and get to know each and every huruf as though they are your friends, that's when you start to establish a relationship with the Quran. When you first start to create the or establish a relationship with the huruf itself first. You want to start right there. That's the first part. That's the first bit. The alif ba ta. Never underestimate the power of learning the alphabets. Even if you are learning the English huruf, the English alphabets, right? There must be something that you will discover about huruf A, example, the letter A, the letter B itself. Even whether it is in terms of writing, whether it is the history of how someone discovered the letter B, right? So there must be something that you learn, and this is one of the adab of learning. This is one of the adab about being a seeker of knowledge. When you learn and then you unlearn and then you relearn. Okay, so I hope this gives you a gist of an idea of what tajweed is all about. And tajweed is not just about learning what is ikhfa, what is idgham, how do you apply the 6 harakah, how you apply the 2 harakah. It's not about that. It will eventually evolve. You will eventually grow from level 1 to level 2 and level 3. Basic is not basic, just basic. Basic is tajweed. But why today, in the Singapore context, why don't we call it tajweed? Because if I were to call it tajweed, it will be a turn off for people who wants to learn the basic. Now, I say tajweed level 1. But Ustazah, I don't know anything. Ani dia. I want to, you have to explain a bit one by one. But that's the thing. But basic itself is tajweed. Knowing what is alif, where does alif come from, what is the sifa of alif, how should you pronounce alif, that is tajweed. I will explain to you a little bit about how alif, how to get to know alif. Then you all will have a broader idea of, banyak rupanya aku tak tahu. Even myself, I was mind blown by all the 28 huruf. Allahumma salli wa nafi'ah. Here is raining here. Right? And then, so basically, we go back to makhraj. Okay. So makhraj is basically the exit point. Makhraj is something, if I were to give an analogy, I would say, where do you stay? I stay at Punggol. Okay. Okay. I want to ask, okay, I give you all a real life example. Brother Rahmad, where do you stay?
Must I say? Yeah, I stay in Choa Chu Kang.
Choa Chu Kang. Okay. Sis Aisyah?
Woodlands.
Woodlands. Okay. Anyone here? I want to see everybody. Wait. Is everyone's camera on? Okay, some of you. Okay. Sorry if I collect names. Don't be shy. I won't bite. Some of you are wearing mask anyway. Sis Farah Angulia. Mashallah.
Bedok, Ustazah.
I'm sorry?
Bedok.
Bedok. Anyone here from
Hmm.
Choa Chu Kang also? Raise up your hand. Okay, Brother Arshad. Please unmute.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Baik, Alhamdulillah.
Baik, Alhamdulillah. No, it's not Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah.
Oh, okay. Alhamdulillah.
That's right. Okay. Brother Arshad, you stay in Choa Chu Kang and Brother Rahmad stays in Choa Chu Kang. Okay. So both of you, thank you, Brother Arshad. Both of you stay in Choa Chu Kang. Okay. But can I say that Brother Rahmad and Brother Arshad, they both have the same character? This is what the alphabet is all about. One location can be lived by multiple people, but each person have different and unique character. So that is what makhraj is all about. Makhraj is about knowing the point, knowing the exit. There is letters of the throat. There is also letters of the tip of tongue, stick out tongue, letters of the back of tongue, slightly to the front of the tongue. Slightly in front of the back of the tongue. What else? You have the side of the tongue, and you have the middle of the tongue. You have the letters of the lips. So these are all the locations, right? So this is the interesting part about Quran, about knowing the makhraj. And one location can be lived by multiple hurufs. However, each and every huruf will not be will not be heard the same. Each and every huruf has its own unique pronunciation. All right, so that is sifa. I'll give you an example about a makhraj, okay, a location. So we all understand, we have all understood that makhraj is the place where the letter exits. I'll give you an example of the letters of the throat. Yep, the letters of the throat. Our throat is divided into three locations: the highest level, the middle part of the throat, and the lowest part of the throat. The highest part of the throat, so in total, okay, the residents in the throat location, there are 6 people. Only 6 people can live in this throat. Okay, so these are the residents. The highest level is your tingkat atas sekali apa? Start with P. Bukan pantry. I'm lost of words. What do you call it? Yang atas sekali.
Penthouse.
Penthouse, that's right. Okay. So penthouse, yang tinggal penthouse ni is these 2 huruf. Kha and ghain. That is why they are wearing a crown. Kha and ghain. Right? So kha and ghain, they are the 2 hurufs that are located at the highest part of your throat. Now, we look here. Even so, they share the same makhraj. They have different sifa. And how do you describe each and every sifa? First, the kha huruf. If you were to pronounce huruf kha, first and foremost, how would you describe the huruf kha? It is pouty, it is heavy, and it has a throwing of phlegm effect. Right? Okay, so everybody, please do not throw your phlegm at the side. Right? You'll be wrong. Nanti kena fine. Right? So huruf kha itself is a very pouty and heavy. But there is also another huruf that is pouty and heavy. But what makes them different is one has a gargly effect. How do you gargle? This is a huruf. Ghain is one of the most complex huruf besides after huruf dad. After huruf dad, huruf ghain is the most complex huruf. Even the name itself have many versions of it. Okay, but definitely it boils down to one version only. Yeah, it's not rain, it's not rain, it's not rain, it's ghain. How do I prove to you that what I'm pronouncing is correct. First, if I were to ask someone, what is the spelling of letter A? Let me ask someone. Brother Amin, Masya Allah, you recited beautifully just now. Brother Amin, please unmute.
Yes, Ustazah.
Yes, saya. Okay. Uh, huruf A. How do you spell the letter A?
A. How to?
Nah, how you
Ah,
spell? Ah,
A.
lain. How do you spell? How do you write? I mean, okay, write lah. But how do you spell?
How spell A?
Hmm.
Ah, A. I don't know how to.
Ya, Ustazah. Apa pula? We got different version. Got. Okay, thank you, Brother Amin. If one were to ask you, what is the spelling of A? Do you spell it as E-Y, like A? Or E-H, like A? Or A-Y, I? No, right? A is an A. Whether you, no matter how much you're trying to spell it, there is always just an A, right? However, the beauty of the Al-Quran, the beauty of the language of the Quran is that huruf ghain can be spelled. Huruf alif can be spelled. Huruf ba can be spelled. And that's how you prove it to someone that, hey, this is how you pronounce this huruf. Okay? Simply put, if I were to give you an example of alif, someone say someone say alif, right? So which one is correct? Alif, or alif? We go back to the foundation of it. What is the spelling of alif? Alif, fathah, lam, kasrah, fa, sukun. Alifun. Fa, dhammatain. Alifun. In Arabic, we call it alifun. But how does it go to the point that it is alif? Because in Arabic, you do not pronounce the last huruf. The last huruf is muted. The last huruf is not being pronounced. That is why, for example, Sis Nadia Shahira, your name is Nadia, right? But the spelling of it is Nadiatun, but you do not pronounce it as Nadiatun. You nak I panggil you Nadiatun? Nadiatun. All right? You pronounce it as how the Arabs pronounce it, which means the ta marbuta at the end has been muted. So when ta marbuta is muted, it becomes huruf ha. So it becomes Nadia. For example, this is Jannah. Originally, your name is Jannatun. Would you like me to call you Jannatun, Sis Jannah? Then everybody with a tak marbuta will become Katun. Right? So, Jannah. Right? Because at the end of it, it is being muted. Same goes to, for example, Brother Ahmad Mudafi'. Correct? Am I pronouncing your name correctly? Correct, eh? Okay. All right. Ahmad. Originally is Ahmadun. Would you like to call me ya Ahmadun? Ya Ahmadun. Right? And the Arabs will call you Ahmad. And why is it called Ahmad? It's not even Ahmad. It's Ahmad. Why? There is a qalqalah of it. That bit is tajweed. Right? So that is why we go back to the basics. So the spelling of alifun, the spelling of alif is originally alifun, and you do not pronounce the last huruf. Therefore, it is being pronounced as alif. So that one straight line is called alif. No more alif, no more a. When someone say, kau dah belajar abata? Abata tu apa? Avatar aku tahu. Okay, so alif, ba, and ta. Second huruf ba. Huruf ba is not ba, ya. It's ba. Ba. Why? Because originally it is ba'un. It's not even ba. It's not even a short ba. It is ba'un with a two harakah. Mind blowing, ya. Baru tahu hari ni. Malam ni pada hari 1 September. Selamat Hari Guru, ya kawan-kawan yang mengajar tuition. Okay. So Ba'un. That is the original spelling, which means his name in S in NIRC is Ba'un. Right? So because the Arabs do not pronounce the last huruf bit, the hamza bit, that is how it becomes ba, ta, tha, jim, ha. Okay, and also huruf jim, kita ghostan balik. Huruf jim, it is not pronounced as huruf jin. It's not with a nun, it's with a meme. Jim, kasra, ya, sukun with meme. It's jim. Okay, so A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, right? Some of us pronounce huruf A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim as jim. Okay, so jim, it should not be heavy. Okay, so just a short description of the huruf that you need to know. Okay, you want to know more? Inshallah, in your SMS, we'll introduce more classes, inshallah. Okay, all right. I got commission, right? Rahmad, I promote ni. Okay. All right, everybody. Next one. The second floor of the resident of the throat is huruf ha and huruf ain. Okay, huruf ha and huruf ain, they live in the same floor, level 2, 02-01. Okay, sorry, 02, yeah, correct, 0201 and 0202. Okay, these people in level 2, same makhraj, but what makes it different? One is a super windy effect, which means you are opening your esophagus, you are opening your throat, allow all the air to come out. But make sure you use Listerine. If not, something else. All right. So, try everybody. And it's not. It should not even this sound. It should not be even this sound. Ha, ha. No, it's supposed to be ha. Okay, and it should not also be this ha, ha. That falls under another category, inshallah, later. Okay, so when the esophagus has been opened, right, you are allowing more air to come out. And when the esophagus has been squeezed and been stressed, that is when you pronounce the huruf ain. So it's not ain, but ain. Any ain here? Nak check. Ada orang nama ain tak? Tak ada eh? Kalau you all ada friend-friend nama ain, you panggil dia. Besok juga you cakap, Assalamualaikum, ain. Okay, no more ain. Okay, so this is the beauty of Al-Quran, right? Each and every huruf has its character. And the lowest resident, the ground floor of the residents of the throat is level 1, 0101, 0102, which is huruf, huruf ha and huruf alif. Okay, now huruf ha is described as a very deep voice. What does the Santa Claus say? Ho, ho, ho. Do you hear Santa Claus say ho, ho, ho? That's right. Although my husband's name is Adi Ho, but we don't call him Ho. Yelah. That one for Santa Claus only. All right. So just a sidetrack. Ustaz Adi, he has 3 brothers. You all know what's coming out lah. So back in the days when we were in school, Ustaz Adi was also from Madrasah Junid. So he and his brothers would go to school together. So everybody will call them ho, ho, ho. Yeah. So that's the story. He's looking at me and judging me. Oh yes, oh yeah. And now we have another 2 more hoes. I have a pair of twins. So one is Alif Ho and the other one is nama anak aku lupa, subhanallah. Habib Ho, subhanallah. Alif Ho and Habib Ho, subhanallah. Yeah. So so we have 5, 6, 7 hosts at home, mashallah. All right. So So that is the characteristics of huruf ha. And the other huruf is huruf alif. Alif is a very clear sound. It should not be ah. For example, I give you an example. When you pronounce huruf, when you recite Surah Al-Fatiha, the first ayat, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين. Alhamdulillah. It should not be even Alhamdulillah. Most importantly, when you first start your recitation, what do you say? You recite your ta'awudh, your isti'adah, your a'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. This is a very common mistake, and I would like to strongly remind everybody here. This should not be recited as a'un or even a'un, because this is very common, and this is very, very wrong. Okay? A'un. So it is from your lowest part of your throat, you go to the second part of the throat. Right? So from the lowest part of your throat, you transit to the second part of your throat, it becomes a'un. That is why when you start your isti'adah, when you start your recitation, it is very important to go slow. Why? You are enunciating each and every huruf and given each and every huruf its right. Okay? All right. So, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. So far, so good. All right. Okay. Any questions so far before we continue? Okay. Let me see if there's any question. Okay. All right. Anybody? Anyone? If you have any questions that you would like to ask, feel free to do so. Okay, anything that you would like to clarify? This is a very safe space for everybody to learn. Okay, all right. Now, when we learn about the makhraj and sifa, right? Improper pronunciation may lead to changing of meaning of the words in the Quran. For example, I give you a very simple example of Surah Al-Fatiha. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Alameen, isn't it? So Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. All praise be to Allah, Rabbil Alameen, Lord of all universe. But if you were to change the Ain to Alif, Alameen, you're saying this: all praises be to Allah, due to Allah, Lord of all sickness. Just because you change the huruf Ain to Alif. Right? So that's how dangerous it is when you change it. But Ustazah, but what if I don't know? It's okay. It will be fall under the category of ignorant. All right. So when one is ignorant, one should seek knowledge. Okay. Muhammad bin Al-Jazari, in his poem, Muhammad bin Al-Jazari is a scholar. And the beauty of the Arabs last time is that the Arabs really love poem. Poem is their form of entertainment. So the Muhammad bin Al-Jazari mentioned that applying tajweed is an issue of absolute necessity, i.e. fardu ain. It's a fardu ain. What is a fardu ain? Fardu ain means it is compulsory. It is wajib upon each and every individual on earth. Okay, that's fardu ain. Okay, absolute necessity. Whoever does not apply tajweed to the Quran, then a sinner he is. Okay, fardu ain is like attending a salat class or learning learning how to salat, learning how to recite the Quran, learning about how to perform Hajj, learning about how to fast. These are all fardu ain. There's another category that is called fardu kifayah. Fardu kifayah means in a village or in a community, there should be one person, at least one person, should have this knowledge. For example, a person who is able to bath a janazah when one passed on. It is fardu kifayah. For example, if in a classroom, when one person gives salam, there should at least be one person who answers the salam. The rest is all not wajib upon the rest. Okay? All right. So we know now that the hukum of learning tajweed is wajib. And Sheikh Zakaria Al-Ansari mentioned that it is required to observe all of the Arabic rules in that which changes it and ruins the meaning. Okay, which means we need to know what happens if the application of tajweed is not being applied, right? For example, the alamin and alamin, knowing the difference. Okay, so there are different types of mistakes. One is the clear mistakes, and the other one is the unobvious mistakes. The clear mistakes usually change obvious pronunciation and meaning. I'll give you an example. The word qalbun and kalbun. Okay, qalbun means heart, Heart, heart. Okay, if one say you are my heart, anti qalbi. Okay, but if you were to change the huruf qaf to kaf, it becomes kalbi, and kalbi means dog. Anti kalbi. All like that. Right? So that is why it is important to know the difference. Okay. Majority of the scholars agree that avoiding the clear mistakes is an individual obligation. This is fardu ain. And Ibn Taymiyyah mentioned that it is undesirable for a student of knowledge to perform salah behind a person who makes clear mistakes in the salah, which means this is something for the men to know and for the women also to know as well. It is very, very important. It is very, very important. Why? Because inshallah, when all of you decides to perform a congregational prayer, okay, especially the men lah, kan, you want to become an imam, you need to know what is or what are the requirements or what are the conditions to become an imam. First and foremost, you cannot be an illiterate lah. Number two, you should be able to recite the Quran fluently. If you're in a group of people, for example, 5 people, you know that you are the only person who is able to recite the Quran fluently. The rest of them they can recite, but you know the tajweed. It is upon you to actually step forward and say, with adab, you say that, do you mind if I lead the prayer? Okay. Of course, we don't want to offer in a form of arrogance, right? Aku tajweed power. Aku imam. Right? Say it with humility. All right? If you don't mind, would you, yeah, if you don't mind, can I be an imam for Maghrib? Inshallah. Bismillah. Right? So it is important to know. And then if you know around you that another person has a better knowledge of their Quranic recitation, give them the priority. What falls under clear mistakes? Changing one letter to another letter, just like just now when I mentioned about the qaf to kaf. Changing the tashkil, right? Fatha to dhamma. And tashkil is very, very important. And tonight, I would like to make a revolution. Tonight, I would like to make a proper change to everyone here. How many of you tonight? Wait, let me see. 36. Dengan host sekali included. Yeah. 36 people, including me lah, 35 people. Okay, to all 35 of you. Okay, tonight no more baris. Baris atas, baris bawah, baris depan, baris apa lagi? Baris atas, bawah depan, dua baris atas, dua baris bawah, dua baris depan, mati dan sukun. Mati dan sabdu. Okay, tonight no more, we change. Okay, we need to acknowledge that Islam is growing, mashallah, alhamdulillah, and Islam is spreading to non-Malays as well, right? So, and we want as much as possible for Islam to spread to as many races as much as possible, right? But if we were to continue and remain with the Malay terminology of atas bawah depan, how would you describe mati? Suka Sarah dia ketawa geli hati. How will you describe mati? Right? Alif fathah, alif atas nun mati, and right? You translate in English. Alif on top, nun die. Right? So this is the part where we need to change. We need to start making changes. Right? No more mati. When someone say mati, you say inna lillah. Okay. So when someone says mati, right? It is mati in English means die lah. Okay. So mati die. Right? If you were to translate it in English, that would be very funny, isn't it? So it's important for us to keep it universal. Okay, keep it universal. And tonight, inshallah, the term that we'll be learning tonight is the Arabic term, the universal term. You are welcome to screenshot the following slide. I should be doing this. Okay. Hold on. Yeah. Okay, never mind. Okay, you are welcome to screenshot this. Okay, so one stroke above is fathah, one stroke below is kasrah. The one that looks like number 9, or Malay we call it depan, right, is dhamma, right? The circular look is called sukun. The W-like shape is called shaddah. Okay, and double stroke above is fathatain. The one that looks like number 29 is called dhammatain. And then the final one is double stroke below, which is the kasratain. Okay, it is very important for all of you to know this. Can we all make a pact? Susah make a pact. All right, it's okay. As much as possible, I would like to encourage all of you to remind each other that to use the universal term. Can we all agree on that, inshallah? All right, now prolongation. This is very important, right? And this is the part where some of us tend to be confused as to how many harakah or how many counting should we be pronouncing when we recite the Quran. For example, when we pronounce غَيْرِ الْمَغْضُوبِ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا الضَّالِّينَ. How many harakah is that? That is 6 harakah. And there is a specific hukum in the tajweed which is called mad lazim. All right, so this mad lazim has a specific huruf, specific harakah that you need to recite. And in fact, there are many other madda categories, madda hukums that have different or various value of harakah. All right, so that is why it is important. So tonight, I would like to inform you first, even though for those of you who have not embarked on their tajweed learning, I would like to inform all of you that غَيْرِ الْمَغْضُوبِ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا الضَّالِّينَ is 6 harakah. And how does one count their harakah? Does harakah equivalent to seconds? No. Harakah is not equivalent to seconds. So 6 harakah is not equivalent to 6 seconds. No. Harakah is based on the tempo of your recitation. If you were to recite it fast, your 6 harakah will be faster. Okay. So what I would normally encourage my students, my own students, to do is when they recite, use their fingers to count. So غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. In a faster pace, غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. At a lower pace, slower pace. غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. It really depends on your pace, the speed of your recitation. Now, when it comes to prolongation as well, you also need to know that in your salah, I'm sorry, let me rephrase that back again. One thing about madda that you need to know, or prolongation that you need to know, is that especially in Surah Al-Fatiha, there is no need for you to raise your voice. This is a very commonly recited, this ayat. غَيْرِ الْمَغْضُوبِ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا الضَّالِّينَ. Do you hear that raise? A sudden raise of voice for the lam. There is no need, actually. There is no need. You can actually raise your tongue without raising your voice. Okay, so that is very, very important. Okay, now moving forward, we also need to understand that stopping and starting at an incorrect place. We need to understand that this is also very crucial. For example, this particular ayat right here. La ilaha illallah. But during the recitation, you are out of breath. So halfway you stop. La ilah. But la ilah means there is no God. And then you continue. Illallah, except Allah. Okay, that is why when you are seeking knowledge, especially the knowledge of the Quran, it is very, very important for you to have a teacher. When you recite a surah, when you recite the Quran, especially when you are trying to khatam, you want to khatam with good quality khatam. And I always mention this to my student, quality over quantity. I have a student until today, it has been 2 years. 2 years, and she is now at the middle of the Quran. That is why I don't have any judgment against anyone who would like to khatam. Of course, by all means, that is highly encouraged. But that should be a personal goal, and that should not be a priority. That should not be a primary goal. That should be a secondary goal. What is your primary goal? Your primary goal to recite the Quran with quality. Because there is no point you khatam the Quran, but the tajweed is not applied correctly. Okay, so again, I would like to emphasize right here, quality over quantity. Mistakes which made by those who have not studied the tajweed. Okay, so how about this? For those of this falls under the unobvious mistakes, okay, which means it falls under the category of ignorant, right? So ignorance, inshallah, is will be forgiven. However, it should be planted with the intention of I'm still learning. There are many more things that I do not know, and I am going to find out, right? Sometimes, they say ignorance is a bliss, not for this, out of context, this one. So what falls under unobvious mistakes? Insufficient prolongation. So instead of pronouncing or reciting in 6 harakah, you recite it in 4 harakah. unaware of rules that require special recitation, which is, for example, merging two letters for idgham rule. Okay, for example, idgham ma'al gunna, the value of idgham ma'al gunna is 2 harakah. For example, فَمَنْ يَعْمَلْ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ. So فَمَنْ يَعْمَلْ is important for you to emphasize it in 2 harakah. But if one were to not emphasize it enough, that would not be fall under obvious mistakes, because sometimes we do not realize when we recite our own, we can't listen to our recitation properly at times, right? It needs another person to correct us, right? So sometimes we tend to overlook our own mistakes. So that falls under the unobvious mistake. And then clear pronunciation for idhar rule. Okay. For those of you who have learned tajweed before, idhar means clear, right? Which means even to recite as it is has a hukum on its own. Okay, so I have a tajweed student who asked this question, Ustazah, how is it that idhar, if you say that idhar is reciting it clearly, i.e. To recite as it is, why does it need a tajweed hukum? This is a very interesting fact. When you are reciting it as it is, right, which means there is no special effect in your recitation and everything, there is no special emphasis, right? You are literally reciting it as it is. That shows how much the companions back then, sorry, how much Allah preserved the ayat Quran that nobody can actually imitate it. To the very detail of the clarity or the clarity of reciting it, to recite it as it is, to that very detail, Allah gave the inspiration to the scholars to name a hukum on it, for it. Even the clear hukum also has its name, has its idhar hukum. So that is to answer why even clearly or reciting as it is has a hukum on its own. Okay. Now, making light letters sound heavy and vice versa. For example, pronouncing huruf ra sometimes require light pronunciation and sometimes requires heavy. Now, this falls under the hukmur ra tajweed. So inshallah, when you all learn tajweed, there is this hukum called hukmur ra. Under hukmur ra, there are 2 hukums. Literally, the hukmur ra means rules of ra, rules of pronouncing huruf ra. Why do we recite it as Bismillahirrahmanirrahim? Why don't we recite it as Bismillahirrahmanirrahim? Right? Why? Is there a specific reason? Yes. And this falls under the hukum or hukmur ra. Under hukmur ra, there are 2 categories. One is called tafkhim and the other one is called tarqiq. Tafkhim is to recite the ra or to apply the ra with heaviness. Tarqiq is to pronounce the huruf ra in a light manner. Okay, so when one recites the Quran and not aware of the hukm ra, that falls under the obvious mistakes. The scholars say that those who have learned tajweed and make these mistakes are considered careless. That is why I am going back to the point where I would like to emphasize, when you want to recite the Quran, it is best to recite it with someone. Regardless, it doesn't have to be teacher. Even if you want to recite casually, it can be with a friend, right? When a friend listens to your recitation, it's nice, isn't it? At least you know that you are reciting it correctly. For me, myself, Ustaz would recite the Quran, and when I listen to his recitation, I will correct his pronunciation, or even myself. When I recite the Quran, if I pronounce it wrong, even to the very detail, when I recite the Surah An-Nas to my sons, Ustaz would correct me. Oh, it should not be mil shari, it should be lower down the tongue, mil shari. Then I would say, got difference got difference, because the listener is always right. Okay. Now, in Surah Al-Muzammil, this is very important, and this marks, or how say, seal the deal that learning tajweed is wajib, and recite the Quran aloud in a slow, melodious style, tartila. Tartila means not only with the music, not only with the melody. One student asked me before, Ustazah, I want to recite like Mishari. I want to recite like Sudais. Master your tajweed first. Trust me, when you learn tajweed, not only you'll be reciting like a Mishari, not only you'll be reciting like a Sudais, you'll be producing your own melody. You'll be producing your own rhythm. Why? Because you know tajweed. Okay. Sayyidina Ali bin Abi Talib mentioned that a tartil means applying tajweed of the letters and knowing where to stop correctly. And in Surah Al-Baqarah, it mentions that those to whom we gave the book studied as it should be studied. So this also is a reminder for all of us that when you learn something, make sure that you learn from someone who specializes in that manner, who is an expert in that. You don't go to a dentist saying that, doctor, my leg pain, right? You go to a gynecologist and you say, doctor, my gigi pain, right? You need to know who they specialize in. Sorry, you need to go to who, yeah, and what they specialize in, right? So always know who. Even asatizas, they have different specialties. Okay, so yes, the best way to recite the Quran is by reciting the way it was revealed. And just imagine, subhanallah, I would like all of you to take a moment. Imagine right now, you are already able to recite the Quran with tajweed. Subhanallah, you have already mastered the tajweed, mashallah. A motivation for you to recite the Quran is when you already learn, or when you are learning, or when you already mastered the tajweed and you are relearning about the tajweed. Imagine when you recite the Quran, it is as the same way as how Malaikat Jibril alaihi salam recited to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Just take a moment to imagine that moment. Imagine you are reciting Surah Al-Fatiha, right? That is how Malaikat Jibril alaihi salam recited to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That is why it is important, right, for you to get endorsement. Ada tahu endorsement? What is this endorsement, Ustazah? Adakah, sorry, am I an influencer? Okay. Why? Even to the smallest surah of Surah Al-Fatiha. So Ustaz Adi was Ustaz Adi was a student in Syria. He had to go through 11 times of to and fro from the masjid to home, 11 times just to get his Al-Fatiha endorsed. Just Al-Fatiha. Okay. And for me, personally, I got endorsed for my entire recitation of the Quran, khatam, via my teacher. My teacher is my best friend, Ustazah Nur Aiza. So I was endorsed by Ustazah Nur Aiza, my recitation, and she was endorsed by her teacher, and her teacher was endorsed by their teacher. And from the scholars to the companions to the companions of companions, and then to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That is why getting endorsement is very, very important. Don't worry about getting the entire Quran to be endorsed. Just get the simplest surah first, Surah Al-Fatiha. Get it endorsed. Ustazah or Ustaz, am I reciting my Surah Al-Fatiha correctly? Get someone to listen to your recitation. Get it correct. Get it corrected. Bismillah, inshallah. Go ahead. All right. Now, okay. This I'm just gonna go through this briefly. All right. Rasulullah SAW used to recite the Quran in slow measure and rhythmic tones as how Allah has commanded him, which means it is a sunnah to recite the Quran with a specific melody, regardless. Okay, you all recite the Quran. Please do not. So I say with melody, you all take. Um, uh, I'm trying to think of a singer, but no name comes to mind. Never mind. Use your own melody. Okay. Why? Because you already learned the tajweed, right? So there isn't a necessity for you to um isn't a necessity for you to copy another person's recitation or melody. It's okay. You can if you like it, right? Go ahead. But if it burdens you, don't worry about it. Most importantly is your tajweed. He would stop at the end of every ayah. What does it mean? Okay, so you see in a surah, right? There is a number, right? There's a numbering system. That is called the sunnah stop. When you learn the tajweed, you will learn the alamatul waqaf. Alamatul waqaf means signs of stop. Okay, signs of stop. So this numbering system is what you call the waqaf sign, and that is a sunnah whenever you stop. There are cases where, for example, when we salat tarawih, right, the imam would recite the entire surah al-Fatiha sometimes in one breath. Yes, the entire surah al-Fatiha in one breath, right? Or sometimes the imam would recite like this. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم. Okay, they continuously recite. Is that wrong? Of course it's not wrong. Okay. However, when you are alone, when you are reciting it alone, it is best for you to stop at the end of every ayah. Just imagine the smallest, you look at it as a smallest detail, but this smallest detail, you will be rewarded. What guarantees us about our ending in this world just based on our salah every day? We need this extra commission. We got our basic, inshallah, but we also need the commission. All right. And Rasulullah SAW said that beautify the Quran with your voices, for fine voices increase the Quran in beauty. And Rasulullah SAW mentioned also, had I know, this is this is a Sahaba, Musa al-Ash'ari mentioned that Rasulullah SAW complimented his recitation, and he said, had I known you were there, I would have made my voice more pleasant and emotional for you. Which means this emphasizes the hukum of sunnah, reciting with melody. Okay, so in the Quran there are exhortations, warnings, glad tidings, parables, stories of the past, commands and prohibitions. So that is why the ayat is to make us to reflect, to cry, to read it with fear. That is why having a melody, especially when you understand the meaning of the surah, right? When you understand the meaning of the surah and you apply it with tajweed, you know which part of the ayah that you need to make it very sad. That's why sometimes when you listen to some of the imams reciting the surah during the tarawih or even the 5 daily prayers in the Makkah, kan, Masjid al-Haram or even Masjid al-Nabawi, and sometimes we hear that the imam cries because they understand the meaning of the ayat. That sometimes the meaning of an ayah contains so much fear and so much warning, right? And it's a reminder for all of us. Okay, and sometimes the ayah is so beautiful. It's a description of the Jannah that also makes us cry because don't know whether we are worthy of Allah's paradise. So that also brings us a lot of emotions. So how can we recite? How can we not recite the Quran without any feelings? How can we recite without any feelings? Sorry. So all in all, I would like to end our session, inshallah. A reminder to try apply the rules, you learn to the surahs that you have memorized first. That is the most achievable for now. Whatever that you have learned tonight, right? Whatever details, small details that you have learned, never think that Allah sikit je, oh it's just so little that I learned tonight. Apply it. Start right now. Make do with what you have first, right? Because at the end of the day, quality over quantity, right? And always remember, take a day at a time, take one thing at a time. If you are new to learning Islam, if you are new to learning the Quran, right? Focus on one thing at a time. Ustazah, I want to learn ulum Quran now. I want to learn tafsir. I want to learn tajweed. And I want to learn hadith and Arabic. Wow. How like that? Okay. Remember, what's that saying? The master of all traders is the master of none. Correct or not? Correct Oh, correct Okay. Right. So remember to focus one thing at a time. Okay. If you want to learn tajweed, start with tajweed. Okay. If you want to learn tafsir, tafsir can be an ongoing thing because you can never have a deadline as to when you will complete the tafsir. We are not mufassirun. We are not the experts in tafsir. So tafsir should be something that is ongoing. It's a reminder, it's a reflection all the time. Ulum Quran should be a module on its own, right? So tajweed and tajweed and ulum Quran, these are two modules that you can actually focus one thing at a time. Tafsir is ongoing, okay? And hadith is also ongoing, Arabic is also ongoing. So make your pick wisely, right? You may make mistakes and need to look back and repeat the surahs, right? So not to fear about making mistakes. It's all right to make mistakes. Okay, that's why reciting to someone to listen to your recitation is very, very important. Practice and repetition makes progress. Okay, there is no such thing as perfection in your recitation. Always understand that. All right. With that, I would like to end my session, inshallah, with Allahu Alam Bisawab.
Thank you, Ustazah, for the wonderful sharing. May
Thank
we
you so
all
much.
be able to benefit from the knowledge that you have shared with us, and may it bring us closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and our beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Ameen. So right now is time for our Q&A session. So Ustazah, if you don't mind, you can stop sharing. Then we shall share the
Oh, sorry.
Menti page. Yeah. Thank you. All right, Alhamdulillah, we have a few questions here. In the interest of time, we have until around 15 minutes from now. So yeah, hopefully we can go through all the questions lah. Okay, inshallah. So the first question here, Ustazah, should we polish our recitations by emulating our favorite reciters as we progress? Or should we focus on reciting well before moving on to introducing the melody into our recitation? So basically the one asking is trying to ask which one is the priority.
Mm.
Yeah.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you so much for the one who asked this question. Personally, I think let me recall back. Okay. Um, you can emulate a person's a reciter's recitation. Yes, you can. You, by all means, you're welcome to do so. My personal take, right, would be knowing who is the reciter that you are emulating, because it is important, okay, to understand that there are reciters who recite it very fast, and there are reciters who recite it um, in a very um, I wouldn't say slow, but in just nice speed. And as you are learning, as you are a student of knowledge, a student of tajweed, as you are learning right now, right? It is important to pick a reciter with a proper or appropriate speed recitation. Okay, if I can name one person, would be Khusari Mujawad. Okay, so the reciter's name is Khusari. Okay, you can find that. All right, I hope I answered this question.
All right, thank you, Ustazah. So we'll move on to the next question. So the next question is, if a Muslimah feels that she is more proficient in her tajweed than a Muslimin leading the prayer, should she still be led by him or conduct her prayers alone? Jazakallah.
Inshallah. Okay. Firstly, the condition of an imam should be a male if your makmum is a mixture of male and female, right? So this is a reminder for all ladies. Okay, if a Muslimin is a less proficient than us, we should not be taking over their role, yeah. Okay, because the first condition of an imam should be a male. If the if the makmum is a mixture of male and
Yeah.
female. Yep. So basically, Bismillah, proceed. However, at the same, okay, not say however, I would say at the same time, remind the imam that your recitation is so and so. If you can correct him, go ahead by all means. If he is the person where you just see him hi bye, or not on, it's just an occasionally, you can just encourage him to start learning or anything. Okay, hopefully this helps.
All right, thank you, Ustazah. So the next question, Ustazah, if we didn't fulfill the proper tajweed of hukum for certain words in our salat, for example, reciting a word with 4 instead of 6 harakah, does that mean our salat is nullified?
If you are aware that you are reciting it with 4 harakah, then it will be nullified. But if you are not aware of it, basically you're not aware lah, basically. Then it would, inshallah, it won't be nullified because it falls under careless and not doing it in purpose.
All right, thank you, Ustazah. All right, so our next question is, how did the Arabs know the harakat when reciting if tajweed wasn't a thing back then?
Very interesting question, this one, mashallah. Okay, I have to say this. This is not under my expertise of how the science of the tajweed was formed. But just like other hukums, like what do you call it, the idgham, ikhfa, the under nun sakina, min sakina, under the alif lam ta'rif. So these are all some of the theories. How they come about all these things it would be the same way as how they come up with the harakah, the term harakah. But how, like specifically 4-6 harakah, wallah, that one is not under my expertise. However,
Noted.
what I can mention here is that harakah, words with 6 harakah especially, always carries a heavier meaning. For example, I will always go back to the basic one, Surah Al-Fatiha, غَيْرِ الْمَغْضُوبِ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا الضَّالِّينَ. Why? Why is it 6 harakah in this particular manner? Because in this particular ayat is because this 6 harakah contains a very heavy meaning, because we are seeking Allah to avoid us, to protect us, to refrain us from being the people who are lost. So this is, I would say, a very yearning note in this particular ayat. So yeah, that's all I can share right now.
All right, thank you. So the next question is, did Prophet ﷺ and his companions speak like how they recited the Quran to Ustazah?
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, I probably think so. Yeah.
Because like I think you mentioned about how
The
that,
classical Arabic,
the classical
yeah,
Arabic.
yeah.
All right. Okay, so the next question will be, Ustazah, I heard the hardest huruf to pronounce is Dha. If this is true, can you share with us how we can pronounce this well?
Okay. In layman, okay, I will just give a very simple, brief instruction as how to pronounce huruf dot. I would like to comment on this question. Yes, in fact, even the scholars mentioned that the most challenging huruf is huruf dot, and it takes years for one to actually pronounce huruf dot. Okay, so everybody, if you I like to explain to my student like this. Put your mind to your cheeks. Okay. So when you pronounce huruf bod, firstly, you need to trap air inside your cheek using the side of your tongue. So you are like you're not biting your tongue, but at the same time, it is just enough trap using the side of your tongue in between your teeth. So bo, bo, bo. Okay. So both sides of your tongue is in between your teeth, upper and lower teeth, and at the same time you are filling your cheek with air. So ghairil maghdubi alaihim waladhdallin. Okay, so what should not be how should not be pronounced is the. When you pronounce it as the, there is a huruf the. You are sticking out your tongue. It should be everything should be inside. Nothing should be come out. Okay, and then another huruf that should not be another way of huruf dot that should not be pronounced is door, like when you pronounce door, door. No, okay, because why? You are actually using the first half part of your tongue, so that should be relaxed. Okay, so to pronounce huruf dot, it should be at the side of your tongue, being trapped using in between of your upper and lower teeth. At the same time, you are trapping air at your side cheek, and that's how you got your bo.
Alright, thank you, Ustazah. Okay, so for the next question, Ustazah, why can't an imam be illiterate if he can recite the Quran fluently? If Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was illiterate himself? This is a good question.
It's a very mind blowing question, mashallah.
So basically, the person can't read, but he can recite. Yeah.
Okay, there must be a reason as to why he can't read, right? That's the question that we need to ask. Why can't he read? Is he blind? Is he, what are some of the disabilities that he has that result that resulted him to not be able to recite? And when one person is not able to recite, we also need to understand that is he at the mental capacity, at the maximum mental capacity, right? So if Rasulullah, okay, this is the part where we can't compare ourselves to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the chosen one. He's the Mustafa. He's the chosen one already. He's an illiterate. Okay, why was Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam an illiterate, and why did Allah subhanahu wa taala chose Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Was because that was how Allah Taala preserved the Quran. Because Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was an illiterate, he is not able to write, right? So that shows how authentic the Quran was. Okay, that shows how authentic the Quran was, because it was based on hearing only. Okay, so that is Rasulullah on a side note. Okay, but this part right here, why can an imam be an illiterate? We put in today's context. When a person is illiterate, there must be a reason. Okay, so if he is not, if he is blind, then okay, he can still be an imam by all means. That's why there's a Quranic braille. We all know that there's a Quranic braille. So at the end of the day, there is a way for you to recite, whether it is in a braille language, or a normal English, or a normal Arabic, what do you call it, scripture. There is always, even if you are reciting in a braille language, it is still considered as you are able to recite. So yeah, I hope this answers.
Alright, thank you, Ustazah. Alright, salam Ustazah. Can you recommend us some Qari and Qari'ah to listen to? Shukran.
Okay. Waalaikumsalam warahmatullah. As I mentioned, if you're a beginner, the reciter that you can go for is Khusari Mujawad. And Qari'ah, in today's context is the reciters who recite the Quran with a special manner, like you know those with what do you call it, melody yang Qori competition in Malaysia. I would say that is Qori Qori'ah. But if you are referring to linguistically Qori and Qori'ah as a reciter itself, I would say I would say the Khusari Mujawad. If you're referring to the Qori Qori'ah with a special vibrato recitation, then I wouldn't recommend if you're a beginner.
Right, noted, noted. Thank you, Ustazah. Do we have a few more questions? Okay. So the next question will be, sometimes why do some ayat not contain tashkil?
Very good question. Okay. I wouldn't say ayat, I would say a particular kalimah. Okay. As of now, what I can share with you is that if you see there are certain huruf that doesn't have a tashkil above it, that is automatically a sukun. A kalimah that hasn't that a huruf that doesn't have a tashkil above it, that is considered automatically a sukun, especially in the Quran. Unless you are reciting from a computerized typed ayat Quran, then they might have a sukun on it. But if you were to recite from the Quran, from the Rasam Osmani Quran, like the normal green Quran, you know, like the ones that we see, the physical Quran, whenever there is no tashkil above a huruf, there is automatically a sukun.
All right, noted, Ustazah. Thank you, Ustazah. I think that will be the last question for today. Do we have any more? Let me see. Got a few more minutes. Okay, I think we have a few more. So I hope you don't mind, Ustazah. Okay, so the next question will be from the previous question just now. What about when we are praying Jama'ah and we realize the Imam makes quite a bit of mistakes in his pronunciation? Is our salat still sah, or should we salat?
Okay. I would say that first and foremost, it's not something that you are aware of first, that the Imam is going to make a number of mistakes, right? So that part about being valid or non-valid or invalid would be something that is a separate matter. Inshallah, I would say that it would still be valid, inshallah. Um, but I would still encourage you to correct. I mean, gently remind the ustad, or even is the imam, or even correct the imam gently as to what particular ayat that he mentioned or he recited wrongly. That is our responsibility to actually to ensure that the next time he leads the prayer, he won't repeat the same mistake.
Okay, I think that will be the last of all the questions we have tonight. Alhamdulillah. Thank you everyone for
Any question
submitting
in
your
the chat
questions.
box?
Yeah, let's have a look. There's none in the public one, maybe on your side, if there's anyone.
Okay. Hello, I have Sis Sarah here. Belanja surah Al-Fatihah. Belanja, okay. Alright. Boleh insyaAllah. Do we have time for the
Have,
request?
inshallah.
Have insyaAllah? Okay, insyaAllah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الرحمن الرحيم. مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين.
MashaAllah. Thank you so much, Ustazah. That was a wonderful recitation.
Inshallah.
Okay. So allow me to share screen right now. Okay, so thank you, Ustazah, for enlightening us. We hope that all of you have a better understanding on our topic today. Before we end this session, I would like to share with you that our next session will be happening next Wednesday, same time, same venue, inshallah. On the screen is the QR code for your feedback. We will be truly grateful if you could spare us a minute or two to send us your precious feedback. Okay, just give a few more seconds. Yeah, shall move on. Alright, for more updates on QTIO, do follow us on our Instagram and Telegram channel. So yeah, just you guys can scan the QR code on the screen. So the one on the left will be our Telegram channel, and the one on the right will be our Instagram. So inshallah, you guys can be updated through our Instagram and Telegram channel, inshallah. Alright. Okay, we have come to the end of our session. We ask Allah to bless our gathering today, and may He shower us with His mercy on all of us. Amen. With that, let's end our gathering today with Tasbih Kafara and Surah Al-Asr. Alright, before you take your leave, just a shout out to upcoming events, Nisa's Welcome Tea happening tomorrow, and Guide to Goodness later this coming Friday. Do follow them on their Instagram channel. With that, we thank you for gracing our event today. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Assalamu warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Ustazah.
Thank you. Thank you so much.